Welcome to this tutorial where we'll be showing you how to use the code-based sample pipeline. What this essentially does is it chunks and embeds your code into a vector store. And this can be used for debugging, using any chat systems, and this is the very basics of any semantic reasoning system. This is the pipeline itself, just a very basic outline. It goes from the webhook. This is where you actually submit your code. This gets sent into the preprocessor, which actually chunks your code and gets it ready for embedding, which is done in the next connector. And this essentially just embeds your code and sends it off to the vector store. Okay, so now I'll show you what the final product of this would look like. So here I'm in the collection that we sent everything to in quadrants. And as you can see, these are all the points, and each point has a chunk of the code that we sent in. This is a pipeline we've already ran before. I'm going to start over just to make it easier. So if we go to Home, go to New Projects, it'll be the code-based chat template. So if we click into that, we can see it's exactly what we saw before. And as for things to change, the only thing you need to add is your credentials into the vector store. In this case, we're using Quadrant. You can use whatever vector store you're most comfortable with. For Quadrant, there's two options. There's the cloud server and your local or your own Quadrant server. In this case, we'll be using the cloud server just because it's easier to implement. If you want to use a local host, we have documentation online for you to look through. So the two things you need for the cloud server is your host IP and your API key. This can be done through the Quadrant website. Now that we have both pasted in, we can save it and we can move on. Before I run this pipeline, I just want to go into more detail about what each component actually does. So first is the webhook, and this allows you to send in files through HTTP request. And once that file is processed, it gets sent into the pipeline. And from here, it can go either two ways, either through the text branch or through the data branch. This just depends on whether the webhook can understand what the file actually is. And then it's sent off to the preprocessor code. And this essentially it chunks your code, right? So you can designate whatever language you have. In this case, I'm about to send in a Python file, so I'll just change it to Python really quick. And you can set the maximum string length. It'll be a range between 0 and 512 in this case. Next, we go to the embedding connector. You can choose one of these three models. I'm just going to keep it on the default mini LM, just because it's good for general use. And then finally, it's sent into the vector store. Right? And this is what we saw before. Now that we've gone through everything, we can run the pipeline. So I'll press play next to the webhook, and this will pull up the project log. Now it's running. And in a few seconds, we'll get the webhook URL. This is what we need to actually send in the HTTP requests. And we'll be using the Talent API tester. You can use whatever tester you want, like Postman. But in this case, we're using Talent just because it's easier and similar to use. So now that we have the URL, let's copy it. And we'll be going to the Talent tab, and we'll paste the URL here. We'll get a few query parameters. And what we need is the API key. So copy that. And we'll be adding that into the headers. So we need an authorization header. Paste the API key there. This essentially just lets you talk to the pipeline. And we also need a content type. This essentially defines what you're actually sending in. And finally, in method, we need to switch it to put. This will let you actually send in files either through text file or the form option. In this case, we'll be using text just because it's easier to copy paste a script that we're using. So in this case, we'll be using the text option. So right here, I have code for a doubly linked list in Python. So I'll just copy this because there's not too many lines of code. It's easy to paste it. We'll paste it into the body. And from there, we can just press send and be good. So now it's sending it into the pipeline, which from there, it'll be chunked, embedded, and sent into Quadrant. So yeah, we got a 200 response with the green bar. So that means everything's good to go. You can't actually see it from Talent. You have to go to the Quadrant UI. So let's go there now. So if we go to Aparavi G, which is what we called it, you can see that we have all the points here. And in each line, we have the content, which is lines of code. Okay, so with these points, what you can actually do with this is send it through an existing chatbot, create a new chatbot. You can create any new agentic systems. You can do all this with the data toolchain. We have tutorials on this on how to make your own chatbot as well. So that was it for the code base tutorial. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to see what you guys can do with it. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video.